Good morning, it's Chrissy's Corner for Collectors, and this is Kitchen Essentials, and I'm gonna try something new today. I like to try new recipes, so I wanted to use some things up in my freezer, and we had gotten a big package of chicken breasts the other day, and we used 2, and then there was 6 in there, and so we froze the other 4 separately. So I have 2 chicken breasts, and I thought, well, what can I make? I want to do a casserole. I was kind of in a casserole kind of mood. Now, if you remember, I have also some chopped up ham that I've been keeping in the freezer that is already cooked, and Bill uses that for his breakfast omelets and things like that. So I thought, ooh, chicken cordon bleu, but I'm going to make it into a casserole. So I did find a recipe online, but you guys know I don't follow the rules. I don't follow the rules, but at least the recipe can guide me in the right direction. So I'm gonna turn things around, get things started, and we're gonna make chicken cordon bleu casserole. Okay, so let's get started. So I told you I had 2 chicken breasts that I've thawed. I have a half a pack of carrots and peas in the freezer that I wanna use up. If you remember from the other day, I had some leftover cream of chicken condensed soup. So we're gonna use that up. I also have a thing of cream of mushroom soup, which I'm not sure if I'm gonna use. And then I took out some of that cubed ham that's been defrosting. So I also bought some mushrooms. And I just bought these, I rinsed them so they're in paper towel. But I want you to see, they're so cute. Look how cute they are. I have no idea what they taste like, but we're gonna give it a try. So the first thing I'm doing is I have some butter. The other thing I want to show you, I have my humongous bowl, because this is another one of those layering things. We're going to layer things in there and then put it all in the casserole. Okay, so I've got some butter melting. I'm going to start with this ham, I think. What I want to do with the ham is I really don't want to cook it. I kind of want to just give it some flavor with the butter, and these chunks are a little bit big for my casserole, so I want them smaller than that. And I also want to defrost it a little bit. This is just going to get tossed in here real quick. Plus, any of the fat will melt down a little bit and give it some good salty flavor. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just dicing these, kind of making the chunks a little bite size, and I'm going to toss them in here. I do have my clean clothes on today and my apron. Yay! I know that's a worry for some of you, so I do make sure that I try to put clean clothes on for you when I'm cooking. It's an inside joke if anybody understands that. But, okay. So why the big bowl? If you've not seen any of the other recipes, the big bowl is so that I can toss everything. It's really annoying. Now this is too much fat, so I'm gonna put that to the side. I don't want that big chunk of fat in there, because there's plenty of fat on this ham already. Plus there's butter in here. Let's see, what else? So if you've not seen the big, I think I just explained that. I don't know, it's early morning. I haven't quite finished my coffee yet. So I'm gonna give this a little toss around. I know, I usually use a wooden spoon, but that's okay. That piece I don't want, and that piece I don't want, and that piece I don't want, and I think the rest are okay. So this is gonna be a pretty big casserole. I like to make, when I make a casserole, I like to make a full casserole, a full pan, and then I let it sit overnight in the fridge, whatever's left over from eating. And then I cut it into squares and freeze those squares for future meals. That's a piece of fat I don't want. That can go in there like that. So I could usually have this already cut up for you guys, but I'm kind of doing this on the fly. It's very early morning. I just got up from working overnight, which won't be long now. I won't be doing that. Hee hee. Very excited about that. Nervous. This is a big job that I'm getting, but I'm excited. Okay, so all I'm doing is cooking this down a little bit. And what I'm going to do with this while this is cooking is take those mushrooms. Now, I don't know anything about these mushrooms because I've never used them before, so I'm just going to use the tops to them. And I'm going to give them a little toss in the butter and the ham. Just because I think that, yeah, I don't know anything about these mushrooms. So I don't know if you use the stems or not. We'll find out. If I am not alive tomorrow, note to self, don't use them. Don't use the stems. I don't know. I mean, they're soft, so I think you probably could. And they're small enough, you probably don't even have to pre-cook them, but I am going to cook them because I think I want to just, layer those flavors. I'm a big layerer of flavors. So these are kind of a Japanese mushroom, and they had dark brown ones, but I thought, you know what, this is going to have a creamy sauce, so I thought the white would blend better in there. So just cutting the tips of the mushrooms off and putting them in here to kind of cook down just a little bit. And already the ham smells so good. And it's starting to caramelize a little bit, starting to get a little bit brown, the butter, which is fine. I know you guys, some people have said to me, why so much butter? If I'm on a diet, I'm not going to use that much butter. I'll use the olive oil, but I'm not on a diet, although I probably should be. And the thing is you can't substitute flavor for butter. I mean, butter is just the bomb. So when you're talking about a big casserole and you're talking about that little bit of butter, it's not a big deal. Now, we are going to add some more butter, but for now, we're good. Okay, so I've got my ham cooking. I'm putting the rest of my mushrooms in. These are a little expensive, I'm going to tell you that too. But, I mean, I don't know. They're just so freaking cute. There is by my house a little, like a ranch stand that has fresh produce. It just reminds me of a market, like a mom and pop market. I like to go there. We can get some of Tilly's food really cheap there too. So I really like to go there and get her greens and then get some fresh stuff. And they always have like a little different variety of items. So I kind of really like it there. I think that's it on the mushroom. Oh wait, there's a couple more. There's quite a bit of mushroom actually in there. I probably could use the rest. Now, what I'm going to do with the rest of these stems, if you remember, I have a bag for stock that I'm going to in the freezer. So I'll add that to the stock thing because I will do a video on that probably maybe next week on how to make vegetable stock and jar it. So I will do that next week. All right, so now what I'm going to do is while this is cooking down just a little bit more, put the rest of my ham in there. So I want the ratio of chicken to ham to be pretty good, So the next thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to add to the big bowl the frozen peas and carrots. No big deal. You know what I'm doing. What I'm starting to do is get my bowl layered. So I have these frozen peas and carrots, a half a bag that were in my freezer and I want to use them up. So I'm going to add them to here to kind of cook them a little bit. Move that pan around, move those mushrooms around, and let that cook. Okay. So I'm going to go off camera, clean my butcher block, and while that cooks a little bit, and then get the chicken prepared. And I will be right back. Okay, so in the big bowl is the ham, the peas, the carrots, and the mushrooms. We got that under control. Now I could cut up my chicken, and because the ham is kind of salty, I'm not going to add any salt to this chicken. The only thing I'm gonna add to it is pepper. That's it. So I'm gonna add some pepper and kind of fling it around a little bit. Get that pepper in there. I do want it to have a little bit of a peppery taste to it. So I've got some butter and olive oil in the pan that's getting nice and hot. And I'm gonna cook this chicken. Now, I'm not too concerned if it doesn't cook all the way through because it's gonna cook in the casserole. But I do want it to have a little bit of a color to it. So I'm not gonna add a whole bunch at a time, a little at a time. And let that cook down. And brown up a little bit. And I'm gonna get my hand blue. I like this little tool because I can pull the meat out and it drains as I pull it out. So I'm gonna use that. So what's next? Pretty much once this is in here, into the big bowl, all we have to do is make the sauce. Now that's gonna be a little tricky because I've never made that sauce before, but it's not a big deal. We'll get it together here. I'm gonna turn my chicken a little bit. And again, all I put on it was pepper because the ham is gonna have salt in it. And the sauce, when we make the sauce for it, it's going to have some salt in it too because of the cheese. So we don't want it really salty. And the only other ingredient I'm going to add is parsley because the cream of chicken herb has some herbs in it. The cream of mushroom, which I'm still not sure if I'm going to use that. So we don't want it to be too mushroomy, if that makes any sense to anybody. And then it'll get a breadcrumb covering, and it'll cook in the oven for about 30 minutes or so. And then, so all I'm doing now is like partially cooking the chicken so it has a little bit of a coating to it or browning to it. Not a whole bunch, because again, it's gonna cook when it's in the casserole in the oven. So if any of the pieces have not flipped over, I'm gonna flip them. So I get a nice little brown on each side of the chicken. All right, so let's talk about price. So those two, I think that package of chicken was like $10.99, and I got 3 meals out of it. So if we say $11, 3 divided by 3 would be like let's say $4 for the chicken. Okay, the mushrooms were a little bit. They were $3.99, so we're gonna say another 4, so that's $8. The soup I already had. The frozen vegetables I already had, and the ham I already had. Right now we're up to 8. If you had to buy any of that other stuff, we'll go up to $12 so far, okay? Then for the gravy, it's gonna be butter, milk, flour, and so I have all that stuff. We don't want to put any extra amount for that. And the panko will have another $3 for, so that's $15, give or take, okay? So $15. This casserole will serve 6 to 8 people, so that comes to about $2 a meal if I ration it up. I am planning on serving this with a stuffing, which we're going to make here in a little bit too. So I am planning on doing that. So that's a good deal, right? But here's the thing, you got to be organized. You have to have containers ready to go. I always have a package of containers to freeze stuff in. You have to make sure you put it in the freezer like next day so it's not hanging in your refrigerator too long. And you have to be organized. So that's the bottom line, is being organized. So let me show you what the bowl looks like. Okay. And I'll put a little bit more oil in there. Then one more. I always use just extra virgin olive oil. That's all I ever use. It's not a bad fat for you, and I kind of like the way that the olive oil has a little tang to it. The only time I will use like a canola oil or vegetable oil is if I'm frying something and I don't want to use up my extra virgin olive oil because it is expensive the kind that I buy, and but it's okay. Now we do have an olive mill down the road here from us, and I'm taking a few days off from work, and I'm going to treat myself and go up to the olive mill. I'm excited. I'm going to go up there and they have like a little cafe there where they make some really good fresh meals, and I'm going to treat myself to a lunch. Okay, I'm going to cook down this chicken, and then I'm going to start getting ready the stuff for the sauce. Okay, we're ready for the sauce. Now, I'm going to start with making a roux. And a roux is basically just butter and flour. That's going to be the main component to making the sauce. I've got my cream of herb, I've got flour, I've got garlic, I've got Dijon mustard, all the cheeses, milk, and a little bit of chicken broth. So we're going to start with first melting down just the butter. And I need a special spoon for that. Okay. I turn the heat down because we don't want to burn it. Now, you're gonna add the Dijon what you like. I'm not quite sure about it yet because that was in the recipe. So I'm gonna add a little bit because sometimes I'm surprisingly surprised when I add something that I don't think is gonna have a good taste to it, but okay. So I'm gonna start melting down the butter, and I'm gonna add some crushed garlic to that. And let that start cooking and get nice and fragrant in there. But again, I have this only on 3, so it's not bubbling in that. So when you make a roux, what you want to do is you want to add the flour and then let it cook a little bit, and then start adding your liquids in. And you'll start to see it get a little thick. So we're going to let the butter melt. So what kind of cheeses do I have? I have Swiss cheese, which is regular Cordon, what you would put in a Cordon Bleu. I have a little bit of shredded Monterey Jack, just so it's a little creamier. And then it does call for a little Parmesan, so I'm not gonna put too much of that in, but I will add some. And the reason I use the crushed garlic is because I don't want chunks. I want it to be a nice, smooth, silky sauce. Always have extra butter, because sometimes the roux doesn't always go the way you planned it to, so. Okay, so now it's starting to down. How much flour? I'm gonna just sprinkle a little bit in there. You don't need a lot to make it thick. And then I'm gonna let it cook. And I'm going to give it a little toss here with my spoon so that everything gets incorporated. And you'll start to see it starts to get a little thick. Once it's really thick where I'm really pushing it with my spoon, that's when I'll start adding the liquids in. So far I've not put any seasonings in this, right? The only thing we added to that was pepper. I did add some parsley to that. So I want to cook that flour so it doesn't have that floury taste to it. It's starting to get thicker. Okay, so you can see when I'm making a circle now, it doesn't fill in as easily as it did. So it's cooking down. You see how that is? It's not filling in as quickly. But I'm gonna give it a little bit more, just because. So that's gonna be our thickener. And to that, I have the cream of chicken and herb. So remember I said there was some herbs in this? So I'm gonna start adding that to that. Remember we had this in the freezer, so it came in handy, right? And that will cook. So let that cook down. I don't want to burn my roux. I'm drinking coffee off camera here, so, because it's morning. Okay, now I'm going to start adding in my liquids. So I'm going to start with this chicken broth. There's about this much left in the container, which is fine. I'm going to add that. I'm going to add my milk. I've got 2 cups of milk here. And we're going to let that cook. down. Now, I am gonna add to this, before I add the cheese and the Dijonnaise, okay, or the Dijon mixture, I am going to add to this a little bit of seasoning. I have this stuff that's like a Mrs. Dash. I'm just gonna do a little bit of that because I think it gives like a nice little pretty color. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of that in. I can always add, I can't take away. So keep that in mind. All right. So we're gonna let this cook, and now I'm gonna turn this up a little bit more, back to 5. Because I want it to start bubbling a little bit, and cooking down. And then that'll make our sauce kind of thick. Plus the soup will help thicken it too. All right, now I'm gonna add the Dijonnaise, the mayonnaise, the Dijon mustard. I'm gonna put a tablespoon in for right now and then taste it because I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna like that. The cheese is gonna be the last because I don't wanna burn that cheese. I want it to melt. So let me get this all incorporated. Take a taste. You always wanna taste as you go. And then see what we need here. Got my green spoon. Okay, that's pretty good. Not much flavor. It needs to be built up just a little bit, so I think I am gonna add some more of that Dijonnaise back in. And plus the cheese will give it some flavor. So I will give it a little bit more Dijonnaise. I'm gonna do another tablespoon. I'm going for broke here. Going for broke. Pile up all my dirty stuff. Okay. I do want to whisk this a little bit, but I want to use this whisk. Probably would make my husband crazy seeing me whisking this nonstick pan, but I'm not really scraping it. I'm just whisking it. I'm not making big scratches on it, but I'll leave it up to him. Don't tell him. Okay. So now it's starting to heat up, and as soon as it starts bubbling, it'll start getting thicker and thicker. Plus the cheese is going to make it thicker. What I can do if I want to make it even a little bit thicker, I could add a little bit more flour right at this point and incorporate that in. But I think we're going to be all right, really. I think we're going to be all right once it starts, because I can see it's getting thicker already. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit more of that Mrs. Dash because I'm going to taste it again. Another spoon. We go through a lot of spoons here. Actually, that's not too bad. I will put a little bit more of Mrs. Dash in, but I'm not going to do a lot more than that because I think the cheese is going to give it that flavor. So, all right, so now we want this to bubble before we add the cheese. So we're gonna let it start bubbling and get thick. And then we're pretty much almost done. Just the panko breadcrumbs. So I'm gonna take you off camera, and when I'm ready to put the cheese in, I will come back on. Okay, not sure if you can see this bubbling. Yeah, I think you can, okay. Now it's getting thicker, and what's gonna make it totally thick is the cheese. So we'll start adding the cheese. I'm gonna add the chunkiest cheese first. So I've got here Swiss cheese that was sliced, and then I just cubed it up. I'm gonna put all the Swiss in because Cordon Bleu has Swiss cheese. So it should have that Swiss cheese taste. They asked for some Parmesan. And then again, I'm gonna add some Monterey Jack just to give it that creaminess. Can you see how that's getting thicker already? So we need our cheese to cook down. I turned the heat up a little bit, but I think I'm gonna turn it back down to 3. so the cheese can melt but not burn. Look how thick that's getting now. Can you see that consistency? Okay. Let's let that cheese cook, and then we'll get it in the pan for the panko. I guess I should give it another taste. I wanted the cheese to melt a little bit more before I tasted it, but I'll need a little bit more Monterey Jack, just for the heck. Okay, that looks really good. All right, let's taste this because I'm dying here. I don't know why I do this on weekdays. Creamy, not super cheesy, perfect. All right, let me get everything set up for the next step. Oops. Okay, now we're ready to assemble this. Let me move you back just a tiny bit. Okay, so it calls for panko. I make my own breadcrumbs from leftover bread that I put out into the oven to dry out. So I have some plain, no seasonings to it, okay? I have some melted butter, and let me grab a spoon, different spoon than that. Okay, oops, okay. So I'm gonna take my melted butter and pour that all over the breadcrumbs, not saturating it, just giving it some flavor, like that. Okay. Okay. Put that to the side. Way to the side. Okay. Now, I've got my mixture. I've got my ham, my peas, my carrots, my chicken, some parsley, and then the pepper that was on the chicken. I've got my creamy sauce that I'm going to try to pick up without dropping. I probably made too much sauce, but it's okay. So I'm going to pour some in here. And mix that all up in my big bowl. Oh, that looks good. Really looks good. Yeah, I'm probably not going to need all that. I'm not sure if I can freeze that. I can try it. Okay, so there we go. There's all mixed up. Let's put it in the pan. So I'm going to put it in a casserole dish. And move it around like that. Bring this up here so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, and I kind of pushed. Boy, I have a lot of sauce left over. So maybe what I'll do, I think there's plenty of sauce in there, but I think what I'm going to do is add a little bit more sauce. Just a little bit. Gosh, that looks so good. Yes, I always have a lot of dishes. I don't have a crew that cleans up after me. Sadly, but I don't. Unless I teach the little dog how to do it. But. Okay, now, got that all done. I am going to take a little bit more of the Mrs. Dash. I have this thing about this Mrs. Dash stuff. I don't know. I'm going to give it a sprinkle over the top before I add the breadcrumbs. And now we're going to add our buttered breadcrumbs. I have my oven on 350. So again, the breadcrumbs didn't cost me anything. So the cheese was the most, I guess, expensive. So 5, 10. Okay, so we're probably up to like $5 a plate now with the cheese and the milk and all that and the butter. Okay, there it is. It's gonna go in the oven, 350, for about maybe 35, 40 minutes, because maybe everything's pretty much cooked, right? And then I will take it out and plate it and show you what kind of happens. Okay, so it came out of the oven. It's still a little bubbling because it's still kind of warm. The top is lightly browned because I had put the butter in there. And then I made a box of stovetop, which took me 2 minutes. No, I'm gonna say 4 minutes to heat it up, heat the water up, put the stuffing in, let it sit 4 minutes, okay? So here's what I came up with so far. And once I get to figure out how to do the graphics, I'll figure this out better. Stuffing was about $2. The chicken was about $8. The ham I had left over, the peas I had left over, mushrooms were $4. The milk, butter, flour, about $2. Breadcrumbs left over, $0. The cheese was about $7 for all the cheese I used. Miscellaneous, that had another $2 in it. It was about 25 divided by 8, so about $4 a person, and I'll have 8 servings, okay? So keep that in mind. So here's how I'm gonna plate this. I'm gonna take a little bit of stuffing. I'm just gonna make a small plate right now because I'm not really hungry, but I wanna show you what it looks like. Small thing of stuffing. And then I'll take a little scoop of this chicken Cordon Bleu. Look how nice that looks. Put that over the stuffing. If I had fresh parsley, if I wanted to go outside, I'd get picked up parsley, but I don't feel like it. I would sprinkle some fresh parsley on that. Let's check it out. It's probably really hot, so give me just a second. It's hot. Okay, good flavor. Hold on, it's really hot. Not super salty. So I'm glad we didn't add extra salt. The pepper gives it a little kick. Breadcrumbs are delicious. Over the stuffing, really good. So I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed making it with you. This is something I would make again. Bye guys, have a great week.